Story 1. Around 2008, blogs were popular, such as the film Julie and Julia. I like to cook, so I created a food blog that no longer exists, but I still post its content on modern social media. I kept the original name. Story 2. My name is Stu. My last name starts with N. When I was young and had a job that required a name tag, someone made mine say stun. Stuck and became stunned. Funny enough, it is a common username. I had to add 9ns just to find an unused one. Some useless history, laughing out loud. Story 3. Someone suggested it on Reddit. I decided I liked it and here we are. Story 4. Mine translates to shelled shitter. Shelled is a river near my home. The story that I defecated in it is not true. I just thought it was funny. Story 5. Dollface was the username I used on Whisper long ago. Deadite comes from a favorite horror movie in my household, so I wanted to combine the two. Story 6. I was once called caustic and flippant in an official military counseling. I embraced it. Story 7. Reddit gave it to me. Apparently it knew I liked helping people on the Help Me Find subreddit even beforehand. Story 8. Switch the first two syllables of the German idiom Tuchtiges Schneiderlein to Schnuchtiges Titerlein. Story 9. It was randomly chosen when I created my account. By the time I tried to change it to Sexosaurus Rex, my legal name, it was too late. I already had minus 1,500 karma points and did not want to lose them. Story 10. When I signed up for Reddit, that is the name I chose and I have not changed it. Story 11. I intended to use this account temporarily, just to ask a few burning questions and then leave. Story 12. My current Reddit username is smallwhite2020. I changed it to be more personal. My big brother's username was bigwhite2020, and I wanted to be like him. Story 13. It came up in conversation and was added to the running list of words or phrases that would make great usernames, song titles, or album names. Story 14. Keyboard smash from when I was young. I used the name a lot in online games back when that was what you played for fun. I've started using it again because it reminds me of the internet and life in general back when it was cool. Maybe it's just nostalgia. The underscore is there because I made another account with this name a very long time ago and then deleted it, but you can't reuse names from deleted accounts on Reddit. Story 15. I love jazz. It's fall and I had scarecrows on my mind. When it comes to scarecrows, a variety of meanings could apply to me, at least to some degree. Story 16. Years ago my stepdaughter and I were brainstorming silly names, and one stuck. Story 17. I have tried to keep a diary but have never succeeded. Story 18. I couldn't come up with anything that wasn't taken. This is what I came up with. Story 19. I was dressed as a nun for Halloween. When my friend revealed what I was wearing under the costume, a drunk woman called me a goth penguin. Story 20. My last name contains the word new, and I'm half Jewish. Newbie plus Jew equals Jewbie. Now I'm stuck with it, laughing out loud. Story 21. I have a bad heart. My best friend gave me that nickname. Story 22. In college, my friends and I called each other dad for some reason. I was thinking of a gamertag and thought if a friend joined an online game and saw me playing, they would say, "Look, it's my dad." I put that together and used it as my gamertag. Story 23. It's what my dad always said when I would come home to visit him. Story 24. I have a stutter, and a friend from middle school called me Stutterbug. She was the only one who did, and I liked it. She kept calling me that into our adult life before we went our separate ways. It was my Xbox gamertag for a long time. I misspelled it when I made my Reddit account. I didn't fix it and never made a new account. Story 25. I had moved overseas for my dad's work, and I felt very alone. My friends back home were getting on with their lives, while I struggled to make friends at my new school. Story 26. That was written on almost every progress report I had in school. He is a very smart boy, but clearly has issues with effort. Story 27. Sweating bullets as a rogue addicted to ganking. I don't know. It's just some silly wordplay on Bilbo Baggins and nothing more. Story 28. I wanted a username without numbers or symbols, which is quite hard. I did not think too much about it, but when I saw it was available, I chose it. Story 29. I used the one Reddit gave me and did not realize I could not change it. Story 30. Literally just the first 3 random words I thought of in the moment. Story 31. The random one Reddit suggested when I created my account. Story 32. I love Tyrion in Game of Thrones and I love Stone Cold Steve Austin. Story 33. I just want to use my Reddit account, so I do not care about my username and just randomly type it. Story 34. ResponseOdd is just a random username given by Reddit. Just a guy is self-explanatory, but it was first used for my Rockstar Games account. The numbers 3431 were included in the username of my first Xbox account. Story 35. I could not think of a name when I created this account and did not know I could not change my username later. Story 36. My old account disappeared, and I was randomly assigned this one. Story 37. I am a female Lightning fan who lives in Jacksonville. I joined Reddit mainly for hockey and then got sucked into other subreddits. Story 38. My usernames on different platforms usually start with shark to match the archive part, since my initials are SH. Story 39. I made a new account to post an Am I the Asshole post because some people know my other accounts and I did not want them to know so much, but I never published it. Story 40. I said, fuck that great, in one account and was banned from a subreddit. I asked to be unbanned and was banned permanently on that account. Now I clicked on a random subreddit. Story 41. I used to have a really depressing one. When I made a new account, I chose an optimistic one. Story 42. Lord of the Rings was the name of my clan in Counter-Strike 1.4. We didn't know English very well back then. Azut is basically Azuth, a god from the Forgotten Realms, but without the H at the end because it looked odd. Story 43. I didn't realize I couldn't edit it after a certain amount of time. Story 44. Named after my favorite existential crisis. The absurdity of my existence. Story 45. Robert De Niro's character in the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown. Story 46. There was a song in Clerks by Supernova called Chewbacca. Oh, what a Wookiee. Story 47. I have read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, watched Midnight Cowboy, and occasionally stretch pronunciations to fit a pun. Story 48. I am an aspiring pastry chef who wanted to start a business called Renegade Bakery and Deli. I had so many people tell me no or say I was not good enough. I entered a relationship where I heard the same thing. I became discouraged and gave up. Now I am at an age where I no longer have the drive to try, so the end of Renegade Bakery and Deli would mean the death of my dream. Story 49. It would not let me put the one I wanted. I tried this as a joke because I was mad. It worked. Story 50. Around 1999, I was working with a client on a software deployment, and we realized instant messages would be more convenient than email and phone calls for what we were doing. I signed up for the newfangled America online messenger with a silly username because I was reading The Princess Bride at the time and was inspired by the Dread Pirate Roberts. My client was a fellow goofball, so I did not feel the need to choose a professional handle. I find this username is typically available, so it has just stuck with me. Story 51. I kept things simple with mine, but I love relaxing in real life and being cozy. Story 52. A random word I created by mixing kimono, which I confused with kimona, and adult content. It was supposed to mean kawaii furry hugs and kisses, but instead it reads as cute Asian dress. Story 53. Scan, identify, predict, decide, execute. A leftover from my motorcycle training days. Story 54. For the 25th time, I got it from a rap song by the rap pin Duke back in the 1980s. I don't bother nobody. I'm a real nice guy. I'm kind of laid back, like a dead fly. Story 55. When I was young, I thought a username of Failwin was cool and swapped the first 2 letters. Story 56. I was listening to a Megadeth album when I created my account. Story 57. The Russian equivalent of the phrase, black sheep, is white crow. The parade happened because a white crow was taken. Story 58. I thought a Redditor was my crush in real life, so I created a username to catfish him. It turned out to be an older man with a mental illness, but I liked the name, so I kept it. Story 59. They called the young hotshot stock traders big swinging dicks. Story 60. I am fond of Hymenoptera, wasps, ants, bees, and sawflies. I like to fly my grouch flag here, so naming myself for a scary wasp seemed ideal. Incidentally, the Entomological Society of America discourages use of the name murder hornet, probably because it promotes entomophobia. Its approved common name is now the northern giant hornet. Story 61. It's the name I gave my character when playing Oblivion, and the name has always stuck. Story 62. Mine is pretty self-explanatory. I obsess over fictional characters, especially odd ones. I like Gao from Final Fantasy VI. No one really likes Gao. Imagining this character trying to adjust is quite interesting. Story 63. I did not really know, so I just picked something I do every day and added words. Story 64. It's an obscure video game reference from a line of dialogue. Vampire, the Masquerade Bloodlines. You are a vampire in Hollywood speaking with an aspiring screenwriter. One potential line of dialogue is to tell him that your problem with all films is that there are never enough Muppets. Story 65. Purple is a school color. Azer is a nickname. 514 is a wedding anniversary. I am a big fan of the strain and the song too. Story 66. I work as a lineman for the county, so it only seems fitting. Story 67. The Iliad and the Odyssey. I am nobody, not important, not useful, not good. Story 68. It's the gamertag I created when I was 11. A mashup of several animals made into a monster. I'm 27 now and still rocking it. Story 69. There is literally nothing. I took Patrick Bateman and made him based man. I am based whether I am factually, politically, spiritually, religiously, etc., correct or not. I do not care. I will say what I want. Story 70. Not a long, heavy story. I did not like the one they suggested when I signed up, so I started thinking, and the only things that came to mind were my sister's dogs. Story 71. The nickname came from an old friend group based on how I behaved at shooters. I included Mr. So people would not ask about my pronouns and to make conversations easier with some people. The 001 is because one was taken, so I added a 0. Story 72. I unwisely joined a poker game with unsavory llamas. I was just a crya, not well versed in such things, and I lost all my clothes and my favorite hat. How could I have known the cards were marked? Story 73. I used to work on the Jaws ride at Universal Orlando, which had 5 show scenes. I played the hero in the finale. Story 74. My name is Grace, and I love Stray Kids. My bias is Han, and his Stray Kids zoo animal is a quokka, so I go by Grace Quokka. Story 75. It's a shortened version of my name I used on a One Piece forum long ago, referencing Kuma the Tyrant, but using a common nickname I use in real life. This was long before his backstory was explained, so I had no idea he was an in-story saint. Story 76. I imagined a world where Steinbeck was from the Pepsi generation. Story 77. I really like Slipknot. Mick Thompson's number is 7, and Slipknot fans are called maggots. Story 78. Well, as my username tells you, my life kind of sucked when I created this account. Story 79. I love outdoor adventures and have a vestibular disorder. Story 80. Over 43 years ago, it was to keep me safe and away from people who were abusing me or preying on me like predators. It is only a portion of my nickname, and it is normally longer. Story 81. I like to hang out at Waffle House after the bars close. Story 82. Put something that's so definitely not true so that no one will ever know it's me. Story 83. I live in the desert and like to travel. It is one of the only reasons I work. Story 84. I was watching Desperate Housewives when I decided to sign up for Reddit. I did not want to use the same username I had been using on websites for years and could not think of anything meaningful to me that sounded interesting, so I decided to use whatever dialogue I heard on the show as my username. Story 85. I once invited people to send me karaoke requests, which they did. I estimate that about 0.1% of upvoters also sent me private messages, so when I had a popular post I would get 8 to 10 requests. It was fun to learn new songs and then butcher them for the public. People still sometimes send me private messages, but rarely, because I post infrequently these days. Story 86. I used to watch a YouTube creator called the Lego Brit and liked how definitive the name was. There are other British Lego creators, but he had that clear identity, so I decided to try the same and become the Lego furry. Story 87. Some wealthy people want to bulldoze the neighborhood to build a golf course. This is an effort to raise awareness. Story 88. I didn't think much. I was just scrolling Reddit, saw a random username, and changed a few letters. Story 89. I am a butcher by trade and served as a Fleet Marine Force corpsman. I treated Marines and now I cure meats such as bacon, pastrami, and jerky. Story 90. I am bad at naming things. In a now-defunct online shooter called Guns the Duel, I wanted to experiment with a gun pairing of revolvers and Uzis but did not want to weaken my main character, so I made a new one. I did not care about the name, so I combined revolver and Uzi and made Zeruvi. That gun combination turned out to be a lot of dumb fun and the character became my main. Story 91. It was a vague reference to an obscure, short-lived fad in the 1960s. If someone passed gas, the objective was to be the first to shame them by pointing and calling Freds out. If you were the one who passed gas, you could avoid shaming by yelling Freds out first. Yes, it was silly. Story 92. I'm just another user on Reddit. The number has no significance. Story 93. I like to take random objects and combine them to create a username. My other usernames are interconnected so my community can find me more easily across platforms, but Reddit is not one of the profiles I want them to find. Story 94. A dilly bag is a small fabric bag Aboriginal women in Australia often carried. Not traditionally, but more like 50 years ago. For many years, I have pretended that dilly bag is my middle name because it sounds silly. Story 95. Iron Donkey was taken. Curse you, the Reddit user Iron Donkey. May you be mildly inconvenienced in a way that turns out to be a good thing. Otherwise, I would feel bad. I think the name Iron Donkey came from annoying a friend I have had since elementary school by naming all my video game characters Donkey for some reason. When I needed to add prefixes for some massively multiplayer online games, I am not sure how I ended up settling on the iron or ferric prefix, but I have been using it for decades. Story 96. Telling Reddit that it is okay to let your guard down. My username is valid. Story 97. There is a musical duo called Blackmore's Night. One of my favorite albums of theirs is The Village Lantern. Story 98. I typed the first words that came to mind in a stream of consciousness while creating a new username. I abandoned my original username because someone I knew in real life referenced things I had never told them. They must have read them by stalking me on Reddit, and it creeped me out. Story 99. My Reddit accounts usually fail, and I have to create another one. Story 100. My English teacher at school called me Romeo. Later, I was meditating and practicing Qigong. So my username is RomeoQ. Story 101. I was having a really bad day. Reddit suggested 5 numbers, and I cut off the last 2. Story 102. I could not find a cool username, so it came out of nowhere in my mind. Story 103. I used the name Cannibal online because my favorite song at the time was Cannibal by Static X. Then I switched to I am a name combined with my actual first and last name. I did not like that, so I mixed it into I am a cannibal. Now I use a different handle for most sites, but I do not want to create a new Reddit account. Story 104. 5 to 7 years ago, I loved a YouTuber's videos. When she started making content about Brawl Stars, I wanted to play it too. While creating my account, I combined my name with the end of her username, and now I have a username that I use everywhere, even in real life. Story 105. When I was young, I called garage doors around the neighborhood Quadus. We named a cat Quadu, but when my dad bought me Minecraft, he said Quadu was taken and chose Quadmu instead. I've used that name ever since. Story 106. It is the same as with several other social media platforms. I am active on YouTube and Patreon. Story 107. You have to pay the cheese tax. Story 108. I could not think of a name, so I typed the most basic one 3 times. Story 109. I am a lifelong fan of The Lord of the Rings. The books, the animated films, and the live-action movies. Pippin is my favorite character. Story 110. I gathered all of my favorite letters from the alphabet, tried some combinations, and came up with Kesgax, but I later changed it to Kesrex. By the way, I use the same nickname everywhere. Story 111. It is my name with the initials of the soccer team that I carry in my heart. The great and glorious University of Chile. Story 112. I was reading about salt mines when I created it. It also works for a busy person. Story 113. Okay, mine was picked by Reddit, but my actual username is Moonegg. In 6th grade, I drew the moon like an egg while we were studying moon phases. Story 114. I asked Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer to suggest a username and it gave me this. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.